Here we have the JBL XTreme side by side with the Klipsch Detroit. The is gonna take it. This thing is a beast. Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of Audio Inside Scoop, and welcome back to another episode featuring the Klipsch Detroit. In the last episode, we compared the Detroit to the Charge, and before that, I did a more review style format to give you guys eyes on the product as soon as it released. Today, we're gonna see how it stacks up to the XTreme. The Detroit seems to fall right in between the Charge and the XTreme, so when considering these products, you may be considering all three products. As such, I felt it was necessary to kind of cover both ends of the spectrum and put it against the Charge and the XTreme. Hopefully this helps you guys decide if you're in the market for one of these guys. This will be the final compare that I do, at least review style compare where I'm talking about the products. Still a bit more on these products coming soon though. I'm gonna throw them into a battle with two more Here With Me segments coming soon where I mic them up and let you guys take a listen. Before we move forward though, let's get this out of the way. Please hit that like and subscribe button below. This channel is still very new. It still has no funding, corporate sponsorships, really any funds whatsoever. So the likes and the subs will hopefully help me get this thing off the ground. So if you're liking what you're seeing, please subscribe. Also, I'll be doing some giveaways in the future, and liking and subscribing will let you know when those are happening. Now that that's out of the way, Detroit is already out of the box from the previous episodes. Let's go ahead and pull out the XTreme and we can go over some specs. Let's go.
Unleash powerful sound everywhere.
All right, so in the box, we do have quick start guide and warranty card. Then we're gonna have on this side our charger cable. Then on the other side we have our strap. And here we have our JBL XTreme.
XTreme.
JBL XTreme. All right, guys, here we have the JBL XTreme side by side with the Klipsch Detroit. Before we go forward though, I'm gonna ask this again this week. What are you guys' thoughts on a Detroit versus Nashville versus Austin video? How about a Klip versus Flip versus Charge versus XTreme video? Maybe kind of cool to see what you get when you step up in each series. If so, did you want to see more like this style, or should I throw it in the Here With Me style segment? Let me know in the comments what you think and what you'd like to see. Anyways, let's start with the size and shape as per usual. Just design-wise, we have a more rounded versus square design when looking at these, as well as pretty much with the entire Klipsch versus JBL lineup. We have more of a rectangular prism style versus cylindrical style design. We saw this last episode and we kind of just see it throughout the lineups. As for size, the XTreme is 11.75 by 5.35 by 5.28 inches. As for the Detroit, it is 13.1 inches by 4.2 by 4.68. As for weight, the XTreme is 4.3 pounds and the Detroit comes in more than a pound heavier at 5.4 pounds. Now let's move on to sound, which I feel is the most important factor. The XTreme spec sheet shows a frequency range of 53.5 Hertz to 20 kHz. The Detroit is showing 55 to 20. So on paper, the XTreme will have a little bit of the lead in the lows. I'm excited to see what these look like in real world scenarios though. Also note here that both manufacturers offer an app to EQ your speakers to your liking, which to people like me, that is a big deal. You can kind of customize it to fit your lifestyle, to fit how you like to listen. As for battery, they are both rechargeable using a USB Type-C connection. Both offer reverse charging capabilities. So if your speaker is still full but your phone is almost dead, plug your phone into one of these speakers and it'll charge your phone back up and keep the party going, keep you playing music, and keep you rocking out. As for playback time, Detroit shows a battery life of 20 hours and the XTreme shows a battery life of 15 hours before needing a recharge. Additionally, another advantage in the Detroit is that it only takes 2 hours for a full charge, whereas the JBL will take 4. Now, 2 hours and 4 hours for 15 hours and 20 hours of playback is not that long, so still great on both counts, but the Klipsch does take the lead a little bit here. Now, as for connectivity, similar to previous compares, JBL is utilizing Bluetooth 5.1 while Klipsch is using 5.3. This is a subtle variance that most users won't notice, but the newer variation of Bluetooth will increase battery life, have less interference, enhance security, and better overall quality of the connection. That said, JBL is not at fault for being slightly behind in this category, as the XTreme 3 is a couple years old at this point. I imagine when the next generation comes out, it will have the same or newer Bluetooth capabilities. Additionally, in the connectivity category, I need to mention the ability to connect to other speakers and boost your sound. Klipsch has broadcast mode and JBL has party boost. With both, you can have wireless stereo pairing or connect multiple speakers together and stream to them simultaneously. So with both speakers, if you and your friends have a bunch of these things or many speakers that support this feature, you can place them all over and play to them all at once. As mentioned last episode though, unfortunately it does seem to be brand specific proprietary stuff, so no, we can't use the JBL connected to the Klipsch. We can connect up and down with compatible speakers within the brand though. So you can connect to Nashville, Detroit, and Austin together to play simultaneously, and you can also connect a Charge, Flip, and XTreme together to play simultaneously. But XTreme to Detroit, it's a no-go. Sorry guys. Lastly, in connectivity, I will mention that the Detroit has a microphone while the XTreme does not. This means you can take a call directly through your speaker on the Detroit, but unfortunately not with the XTreme. Now let's talk about appearance. Like the Austin and Nashville, the Detroit is what most people are looking for out of a speaker like this. Portable, black, plain, no frills appearance-wise, all about the sound. In the JBL, you have a standard black no frills option available, but the JBL has a ton of different color options available. You can even customize your speaker with pictures and logos or whatever. I am still thinking about what I said in last episode here. Maybe if this channel gets big enough, I will make a custom inside scoop flip or charge or something to that effect and give it away. Would you guys like that? Anyways, this in no way impacts the sound, but it does make it more customizable to fit your lifestyle. With lifestyle mentioned, let's dive into some other lifestyle aspects as well as the ruggedness of both. Both are IP67 rated, which means dustproof and waterproof at 1 meter for 30 minutes. So you should be safe taking these guys almost anywhere. As always though, I do have to mention waterproofing on any electronics, including these guys, will degrade over time. As such, maybe use these in harsh conditions sparingly or whatever you want to do. Your call. Finally, let's talk about price. The XTreme is currently $379 and the Detroit retails for $299, so pretty significant difference there. As mentioned before, the reason I am comparing with such a price gap is because Klipsch falls right in the middle of the two JBL products in the line. Last episode, the Charge was a lower price tier. This episode, it's the Detroit. Which one's better? Is it worth the difference in price to grab the XTreme, or is the Detroit going to take it due to price-performance ratio? I'm going to do all my usual testings. We're going to take it outside, run it around a bit, and we'll see. Stay tuned, guys. I'll be right back. All right, guys, I am back, and my speakers may still be a little bit wet. I tested these in many environments, pretty much the same environments as the Austin, Flip, Nashville, and virtually identical to the last episode's Charge versus Detroit video because that worked pretty well. It was even bad weather again, so our outside listenings were wet and gross this time as well. Now, again, starting with this room. In addition to regular listening here, I did some white noise tests, and I also pulled out the meter here to get some readings. As I said in the last video, as I've said in lots of previous videos, take these guys with a grain of salt. Don't compare these readings to the spec sheet. While they are great for comparing side by side, as the speakers are identical placement and we are using the same meter and it's the same distance and so forth, this is not set up anywhere near the same as these would be in a lab. So again, take them with a grain of salt. Next, we move to the outdoors and on the go. I first mounted both to the four-wheeler, again because I really like this setup. You guys like this setup? I think it's pretty fun to do, and a lot of you guys seem to be liking this part of the review. So anyways, still wet, still gross. Here I am pulled over in the middle of the woods and having a listening session with them mounted to the four-wheeler. Here's some other stops out in the open, no walls, just trees. As I've said in other videos, I take this type of speaker with me camping on random excursions, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. The scenario will be pretty regular for a lot of people. Additionally, I did my dunk test here in the creek. Probably shouldn't have. I figured the speakers weighed enough to stay in place when I tossed them in, but apparently the current was a bit stronger than I had anticipated. I ended up having to jump in after the XTreme. Then, already wet, may as well do the same test for both since I'm already soaked. So I tossed in the Klipsch as well and ended up needing a full change of outfit. So here we are. I did not expect for them to float and go down the creek. They both did, but we retrieved them both. Here they are. I'm a little wet and gross, but I expected at least one of them to stay put. Anyways, now various rooms, various places. I tried to take these in a bunch of different spots to test these in kind of any environment that you guys may have them in at home. After a while of playing these, testing them in various rooms and scenarios, I'll finally give my overall opinion and breakdown of why you should go with one over the other in my 4 usual categories: price, lifestyle, connectivity, and sound. If price is your main concern, Klipsch is going to take the win here at $80 cheaper. That is a super easy win for the Detroit, but like I mentioned last week, if you're watching these videos, you already know the price points. You've looked this up already. You're likely not watching to see which one is cheaper, you're watching to see if the additional cost is money well spent. With that, let's go ahead and move on to lifestyle. As for lifestyle, I'm giving this one to Klipsch also, but not by a huge gap. Both are super rugged, both have the same waterproofing, and both handled just fine after being dunked and by being taken away by the creek. And both feel pretty solid in their overall build quality. I also forgot to mention earlier straps, but I will now. They both have straps. There, I mentioned it. As for which strap is better, the Detroit's doesn't get in the way as much as the XTreme does, but the XTreme seems to be a bit more functional, and you can toss it over your shoulder as opposed to just use it as kind of a handle. This one's going to be a preference and use case based though, so it's your call which one you like better. Both can also be removed if you don't want a strap at all. Now, where is Klipsch going to take the lead here if all of that's the same? It's going to be battery, guys. 5 more hours of battery rating and half the time for a full charge is a pretty decent gap. Now, on to connectivity. I'm going to go with a tie for connectivity. Both of these guys offer reverse charging and a mode to support multi-speaker setups. But with the latest Bluetooth and the addition of the microphone, Klipsch pulls ahead by a bit there. That said, JBL's reverse charging isn't the same port as the Charge port. It's a standard USB-A port, so it's more universal. JBL also offers an aux port where the Klipsch does not. All of these things factored in, I'm calling it a tie. I would probably tend to favor more towards Klipsch in this category because later gen Bluetooth and microphone are kind of a little bit more important, but I really like the fact that it's a USB-A and an aux port. So you guys be the judge of that, what you guys think is most important, but officially we're gonna call this one a tie. To recap, we have Klipsch ahead by a bit, but we have not gotten to the most important part yet: sound. At least to me, this is going to be the most important. Now, this was a tighter gap here than we had with the Charge. With the Charge, the Detroit just kind of blew it away. As for the XTreme though, let's see. As for overall output, how loud can they get? How well can they feel a party? How well do they do when they are pushed to their limits? Both did great here, honestly. About equal in overall output and oomph, if you will. High frequencies I feel was a pretty solid matchup as well. Both were clear and crisp in the high frequency range. As for mids, the Klipsch is going to take the mids for me. I feel like the JBL was lacking a bit. Just not quite as present as I wanted them to be. Now, as I mentioned, both speakers offer EQ, so I could tune this a little bit if I wanted to, but for all these tests, I leave all of those settings alone. These tests are done completely factory EQ and straight out of the box. Now, on to low frequencies. Here's where I thought JBL was really going to pull ahead. The spec sheet shows them pretty close at 53.5 Hz for the XTreme and 55 Hz for the Detroit, but not even looking at that, I typically see JBL's being a little bit more bass heavy, so I was thinking this guy would be the same. The XTreme did sound great, it really did. It had great lows, but the Detroit absolutely blew me away in the low frequencies. Honestly, I think that Klipsch undersold this thing in the spec sheet. The XTreme, I could hear the low frequencies. The Detroit, I could feel them. I could feel them in my chest. Now, next, the Detroit felt more balanced and less room dependent. The XTreme sounded significantly different based on the room that you were placing it in, whereas the Detroit was solid and more full even when you took the room away by putting it outside. It felt like the Detroit was more dependent on the cabinet itself than the environment, if that makes any sense. Obviously, the room changes the sound a bit for anything you listen to, but it didn't seem to impact the Detroit nearly as much. The Detroit sounded very similar in every environment you placed it in, and I could still hear those lows. I could still hear that full range, even when we put the speaker outside. Guys, as you may have figured out, the Detroit is going to take it in sound as well. It's taking that win. This thing is a beast. Now, that's my thoughts anyways. As you guys are picking these guys up and taking them home and trying them out for the first time, let me know what you think. Do you agree? Are you hearing the same results as me? Are you hearing the same things as me? Let me know in the comments below. And there we have it, the Klipsch Detroit versus the JBL XTreme. All right, talk to me guys, did this help? Which one are you buying? Have any of you guys picked up the Detroit and gave it a listen yet? Anything I might have missed here that you'd like to see me cover in future episodes? I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and talk to me about it. As promised, next we're going to jump back into our Here With Me segments and mic these guys up and let you take a listen. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button below before you go to stay updated on new content. Also hit the bell next to it to enable notifications and be the first to hear about new videos as soon as they release. Until next time though, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys soon for another episode of Audio Inside Scoop.